Thomas Jefferson was the third president of the United States, serving between 1801 and 1809. He's known for many things, though he had a surprising talent that isn't so well known. Behind the scenes, Jefferson was involved in US intelligence. A decade or so before he became president, Jefferson came up with something called the wheel cipher, which could be used to send coded messages. It was designed as an iron spindle, onto which threaded 36 wooden pieces. When these wheel-shaped pieces were all on the spindle, they formed a cylinder. Each wheel had letters running along the outside. The idea was you would turn the wheels to create a message. But here's where the secret part comes in. You refer to the letters above and below to scramble your message. When an ally receives this scrambled message, they can then use their own wheel to work out what you sent. If that sounds kinda confusing, don't worry about it. It takes a special mind for this stuff to work anyways. The main thing is, Jefferson gave birth to an important piece of equipment for the intelligence service. Surprisingly, his design stayed just that, a design. It wasn't until 1922 that another wheel cipher was invented, but Thomas Jefferson beat them to it. His original idea was found, and people saw the president in a whole new light. Jefferson worked on other inventions too, though this was the only one he originated rather than improved upon. Fun fact: without Thomas Jefferson, America wouldn't be enjoying mac and cheese. Working with his chef James Hemings, Jefferson introduced the staple dish to tables across the United States. It's probably important to note, though, that Hemings was an enslaved worker, so he had a pretty hard life. It may seem like the President of the United States sits around the Oval Office and attends various meetings the whole time, and if you put it like that, it sounds like a pretty boring job. But there's a lot more to some presidents than meets the eye. Behind the scenes, there's a private person with their own hobbies and interests, and some of these are pretty eye-opening. There's a bunch of crazy adventures going on, happening where you can't see them. Until now. From the surprising to the just plain silly, I'm revealing the wild presidential hobbies that will make you see these guys through a whole other lens. Wait till you hear what George W. Bush can do with a paintbrush. Calvin Coolidge was the 30th American president. He served between 1923 and 1929. He was a leader who wanted to rein in the country during a time of indulgence. Not everyone was wealthy, of course, but Coolidge wanted the USA to tighten its belt. He wasn't an adventurous president, though he did enjoy riding horses during his life. Sadly, that came to an end when he became allergic to his four-legged friends. Coolidge reportedly suffered from asthma, which was aggravated by the horses. Riding was a great source of exercise for the president. So how did he keep that going under these strange circumstances? Enter the electric horse. The mechanical steed was given to President Coolidge by John Harvey Kellogg. And if that name sounds familiar, then take a look in your cupboard. It's the same Kellogg behind Kellogg's cornflakes and other iconic products. But why did Kellogg send what was basically a robot horse to the president? He figured it would be a good workout tool. As well as making cereal, Kellogg was big on physical health. There's a crazy movie about his exploits starring Sir Anthony Hopkins called The Road to Wellville. The electric horse looked like something you'd see in a bar, but it had a serious purpose. Despite people finding it funny at the White House, his invention really helped Coolidge with his health. He climbed aboard the saddle 3 times a day for a regular workout. Fun fact, the electric horse was initially kept behind closed doors. American taxpayers didn't know about it. Then it malfunctioned and had to be repaired, and that's how the story got out. George W. Bush was the 43rd President of the United States, serving between 2001 and 2009. Unlike the other presidents we mentioned, he's still alive today, and has been doing various things since his time at the White House ended. And one of those things is a bit of a curveball. You see, W is quite the artist. He's been painting portraits of dogs, human family members, and fellow politicians for quite some time now. It all started for him artistically in 2012, when he was inspired by the work of former British Prime Minister Sir Winston Churchill. But does Bush's patriotism affect what he chooses to paint? It doesn't really look like it. Can you believe he painted a portrait of Russian leader Vladimir Putin? The picture received some good reviews, but a lot of people questioned whether he should have painted America's enemy at all. Fun fact, Bush actually painted a portrait of himself in the shower. It's an image of a former president in the nude we never knew we needed. But George W. Bush isn't the last naked president we're going to talk about. In fact, our next commander-in-chief, John Quincy Adams, was quite a bit worse, because he loved to go skinny dipping. It's a pretty normal daily routine to go swimming, and doing it naked is fine. It's a free country. But does a president have to do it? I guess he took the idea of land of the free too literally. John Quincy Adams was the 6th US president. He occupied the White House from 1825 to 1829, and the Potomac River between Maryland and Washington, D.C. was his chosen spot, specifically an area called Tiber Creek. And it's probably not so surprising that there's a pretty funny story connected to John Quincy Adams and his skinny dipping ways. And it involves a writer named Anne Royal. She had a colorful history, developing a career in journalism after being widowed during the Revolutionary War. According to the story, Anne Royal approached John Quincy Adams while he was taking his daily skinny dip, and she began questioning him while he was naked in the water. Royal became the first female writer to ever interview a president, because she sat on his clothes, effectively forcing him into having the conversation. Now, this story is believed to be made up, but it's a pretty good story either way. Fun fact, Adams would start his day with a cold bath at 5 in the morning, followed by a walk which could last miles, so he was pretty much the first cold plunge influencer. Whether solving important problems or relaxing with a paintbrush, the presidents of the United States led their own lives, just like everyone else. We remember them for what they achieved or didn't achieve while they were in office, but it's rare you see them as actual human beings. I hope this video proves there's a human element to being the leader of the free world.